everybody, how are we all doing today? Of course, spring break had planned on cycling into work today. However, it is raining, not torrentially, but pretty hard, and I just didn't feel like getting soaked. So, instead we are driving. No big deal, I get to go in a little early, actually. I've left about 10 minutes early. Now, I wanted to talk because last night my wife and I watched a movie we hadn't seen in a few years, but one that I've always really appreciated and one that I often quote, and that is Club Dread. It is a Broken Lizard movie, and if you haven't heard of Broken Lizard, not shame on you, that's the wrong word, but just you poor bastard. Broken Lizard is a great comedy troupe. They started with their movie Super Troopers about highway police in New England. The movie came out, I think, around 2001. Followed a few years later by Club Dread, a few years after that by Beer Fest, and a few years after that by the Slammin Salmon. Likely, if you've heard of any of them, you've heard of Beer Fest and or Super Troopers. But I gotta say, Club Dread is also a terrific movie. And the Slammin Salmon is worth watching, but I just not quite hit it. And I'm gonna go into why a little bit here. But the thing I really wanted to talk about, not necessarily these movies, so even if you haven't seen these movies, you can continue watching them, is that this is a comedy troupe where every single one of their movies had a character played by somebody who's not in their troupe, an actor who you've seen, actress who you have seen in another movie somewhere, and who doesn't exactly steal the show necessarily, but they kind of tie the whole movie together. And this is a formula that we didn't really notice until just last night, really. And I don't know if it's their intended formula or if it's just something that they want to do or if it just happened that way. But in Super Troopers, you had Brian Cox, who was also seen in X-Men 2. He played Stryker. And you also saw him in The Ring, where he played My Wife Was Not Supposed to Have a Child, that guy. And then he's been in a bunch of other things. And then in their second movie, Club Dread, had Bill Paxton, rest in peace, who was, of course, Game Over, man, and 1,000 other roles. Bill Paxton was terrific in that movie. Both of them. In Beer Fest, you had Cloris Leachman, who is, of course, in my humble opinion, best known for her roles as the nosy landlady from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and as Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies remake. Not remake, but the movie that was many, many years after the show had completed. The one that, of course, rest in peace, Jim Varney played Uncle Jed. And then the Slammin Salmon, and this is where it really kind of solidifies my theory. The Slammin Salmon had Michael Clark Duncan, who of course was in The Green Mile, also rest in peace. And Michael Clark Duncan, he was in Planet Apes and 1,000 other things as well. So all fairly prolific actors, no ridiculously large names. Bill Paxton probably the largest among them, but recognizable figures. And their roles, with the possible exception of Cloris Leachman, their roles hold a real linchpin to the movie. And the only reason I say possible exception of Cloris Leachman is because in that movie she's a bit more of a MacGuffin. She's kind of driving the plot along, but not entirely necessary to the plot. Now, I bring up Michael Clark Duncan because the Slammin Salmon, and I mentioned this is almost a pariah of these movies, the Slammin Salmon wasn't exactly very funny, but I've only seen it one time. And I do have some memorable quotes that I can remember from that movie, which is a good sign, right? You know, if you're quoting that movie, shoot, when did I see it? 9 years ago? If you're quoting a movie that you saw, it might have been less than 9, but a long time ago, a comedy movie, even if you could say it wasn't all that funny, if you're still quoting it, it must have been kind of funny, right? Well, here's the thing. Comedy troupe. The lines I'm quoting were spoken by Michael Clark Duncan. All of them. Meat grapes. Who's this guy, Meat grapes? It's pronounced Madropides. Oh, how come it don't sound like that when I say it? And then a few others. Remember when you assume you make an ass of yourself. So, if that's their formula, which is fine, they're killing themselves with it in this movie, because in this movie it doesn't work to their advantage. It makes me think, all right, here's some boring people who are just kind of hanging on the coattails of Michael Clark Duncan. But they really, really are funny, and they are purportedly, I'm following them on Twitter, so I should hopefully they should not be lying to me. I don't even know what to make of this. Making Super Troopers 2, which can be awesome. Super Troopers is the first of their movies, not even touched by any of the others. I think Club Dread was excellent. I think Beer Fest was almost as good as Club Dread. But Super Troopers was the creme de la creme of the four. And then Slammin Salmon really suffered. It just wasn't funny, and it was kind of dumb and a little gross. I think I liked about Super Troopers, though. I'm going to make this final comment before I wrap up here. Super Troopers was subtler. It wasn't particularly subtle, but it was much more subtle than the rest. And then you got a little more gratuitous with Club Dread. And of course, part of the gratuity of Club Dread was that Club Dread was making fun of slasher films like Halloween, and did a really good job. It's not like Scary Movie, where they're just making an absurd movie that is kind of in the same scenes as Scream or other horror movies in that era. This was actually poking fun at the things that slasher films did wrong, while at the same time making a genuinely funny movie with genuinely funny characters and genuinely funny scenes. And that's the thing, is if you're going to make fun of a movie genre, I find that it can only really, the poking fun of the other movies can only support about 20 minutes worth of material. Sometimes maybe 30 if it's a lot of good stuff. Sometimes as little as 10. That's why I didn't like Austin Powers. Austin Powers making fun of spy movies. Of course, you've got 15, 20, 30 minutes worth of funny spy spoof stuff. But then you've just got then a lot of other Mike Myers gratuitous, silly, obnoxious humor. It wasn't very funny. But my point is that Beer Fest then went even further. More gratuitous, more off the wall. And then I think that I wouldn't say that Slammin Salmon went too far. I would say that it went much further, and it lost humor value because of it. It just became absurd, not funny. But again, I've only seen Slammin Salmon the one time, so I'm no expert. Have you seen Broken Lizard? Have you seen any of their movies? Have you seen... Oh, there was another one there, Puddle Cruiser. Didn't even count Puddle Cruiser. I'm sorry. For Super Trooper... Broken Lizard aficionados, I forgot to mention Puddle Cruiser, which I've seen a couple of times and thought was rather funny. That was their original movie, but hardly even counts. Super Troopers is really where they hit it off. But if you are a Broken Lizard fan, have you seen their movies? What do you... obviously, if you're a fan, you've seen their movies. If you're a fan, what did you think of their movies? If you're not a fan, have you at least seen and or heard of these movies? What are your favorite comedy trip movies? If you've seen these movies, what other movies would you recommend that we see? So I just want to get your opinion. And in any event, have a nice day. I hope it's not raining where you are, but if it is, stay dry. And, yeah, stay